Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name is Matt. This is Made with Matt. And in this second part of the crypto price tracker series, we'll be building out this section over here. So the bottom sheet where when we click on one of the list items, it comes up and it has some data about the coin we're tracking. And we'll also be able to interact with this chart by scrubbing over it. So to accomplish this, we'll be using some external packages. So the first one is going to be a bottom sheet. So that's this one over here, which we'll run through in the video. And then the next one is going to be React Native animated charts, which will help us create these really nice flowy charts. So let's jump into it. I've got VS Code open with my simulator running. Once again, if you need to run your simulator, what you could do is type in Expo start. And once you do that, you'll see a QR code show up. You could scan this so you could run it on your phone, or if you have your simulator set up, you could type in I or A, depending if you want iOS or Android, and your simulator will open up. So I've already got mine opened up. So we'll go ahead and get started by downloading some packages. So the first one that we'll need will be this one over here, so React Native bottom sheet. So we could go to the documentation and scroll down. So this is version 2. We'll go with version 3 since it's the most up-to-date one. So let's copy that, paste it in. And let's also copy these dependencies, paste them in, and hit enter. Now that we've got that set up, let's jump back to the documentation and we'll be using the bottom sheet modal. So jump in there, getting started, and let's go to usage. So for the bottom sheet modal, we'll need to copy in these imports. So it's importing the modal and then a modal provider. And we're also going to need to implement these two lines over here. So the bottom sheet modal ref, this is basically a reference to the modal so that we can then open it up by using present and close it as well when we need to close it. And then we're also going to need to copy in these snap points. And basically snap points are where on the screen we want the modal to snap to. So basically where we want it to appear. So for example, in this one, there's two spots that it could kind of lock into. First one is at 25% the height of the screen starting from the bottom. And the second one is at 50%. Starting from the bottom. So as we could see, we'll wrap everything into the modal provider, and that's where we'll hold our bottom sheet modal. So let's copy this up here and jump into our code. So I'll open up app.js, which is where we'll be placing it, paste it in, and we'll wrap our entire item over here with the bottom sheet modal provider. So that's a component. Good. And then down here, we'll be placing the bottom sheet modal. So this is the actual bottom sheet that's going to be coming up. Now jumping back to the documentation, we could see what we need to include in this to get a basic setup going. So let's just copy all of these and paste them in. Just like that. Perfect. Fix up the indentation. Okay, awesome. Looking good. So we'll need to set up this bottom sheet modal ref and also the snap points. So let's go copy those. Snap points and bottom sheet modal ref. Paste those at the top here. And we'll just delete this 25% and leave it as 50%. Good. Now coming down here, on change, we could actually remove this as we're not going to be using it. So let's delete that. And snap points index, we'll change this to 0. So this index corresponds to the starting index in the snap points. And for us, there's only one of them. So it's going to be 50%. So let's save that. and now it can't find variable useRef. So that we need to make sure to import it from React. And same thing for useMemo. So you might also see this error over here about string refs. To fix that, just go ahead and delete what's in those angled brackets. And there we go. Now it should work. So I'm just going to delete these comments. Awesome. So right now we have no way of actually opening it. So we could add a button down here to test it out, but instead of that, let's go straight into implementing it, where when we click on one of these, it opens up a blank modal. So to do that, under ListItem, let's pass in a new prop called onPress, and this will pass in a function that's going to call open modal. Now let's go create that open modal function. So const open modal. And what that is going to do is say bottom sheet modal ref dot current dot present. Just like that. And this right here, this comes from the documentation. So this line right over here. Now jumping into ListItem, we're going to want to take in an onPress prop and touchable opacity over here. When we press the touchable opacity, we'll want to call that onPress prop that we passed in. So let's save and save here, and let's test it out. Now, when we click on one of them, we'll see that we do get an error, and it's related to reanimated 2. So if we go into the Expo documentation and just look up Expo reanimated, we see that there's one extra step that we need to add. So we need to add this plugin right over here to babel.config.js. So let's go find that, babel.config.js, paste that in, save, and let's reload our app. So if we run our app and try it out, we could see that it actually crashes because of reanimated 2. So if we look up using Expo with reanimated, we'll see that we need to add this plugin right over here in the babel.config.js. So babel.config.js, paste it in and save, and we're still going to get an error over here. To fix that, we'll go ahead and stop our Expo server, and we'll run this command over here. So expo r-c, and what that's going to do is restart the cache, or at least clear the cache when it reloads the app. So after doing that, make sure you hit the R key to reload your app. And now once it reloads, we'll see that when we click on any of them, we see this bottom sheet come up with the text we were expecting. So that is perfect. So let's actually start by adding some styling to this sheet. So we could add some shadow and some border rounding. So under bottom sheet modal over here, we'll say style is equal to, and we'll say styles.bottom sheet wrapper. And actually, let's just call this bottom sheet. Copy that, close my terminal. Paste it down here, and let's get started. So we'll want a shadow, so we'll set the shadow color equal to 000, which is black. We'll want a shadow offset, so let's open that up. So the width, shadow offset of 0, height, we'll want a shadow offset of -4. Next, we'll want some shadow opacity. We'll set this to 0.25. Shadow radius, we can set to 4. And if you're on Android, instead of shadow, we'll be using elevation. I'll set that to 5. Save that, and there you go. We have some shadow. So now we can move into this section over here where we actually start building out this chart and passing in the correct data. So to do that, let's go under components and create a new file called chart.js. In here, I'll create a new functional component. And for now, we'll just say chart. Save that. And in app.js, we can replace all of this with chart and make sure that we import it. So it's going to be the same import as the list item, just with chart instead of list item. And if we save that, perfect. So now in the chart, we know that we're going to need to have all the data that we can from the API about a specific coin. So to do that, we always need to be passing the most up-to-date coin data into this chart. So we'll create a state to store that most recent one. So const selected coin data, and then we could say set selected coin data. And that's going to be equal to use state. And for the initial value, we'll just set it to null. Now just make sure that use state is imported from React, otherwise this might throw some errors. So now that we know we want to store the item or the coin data that has been clicked in this variable, what we could do is under OpenModal, we can take in a certain item, and right above or right before presenting the bottom sheet, we could say set selected coin data and put that equal to the item. Now, when we call OpenModal over here, we already have all the information about the item from up here. So what we could do is just straight up pass it in like that, save it, and there we go. Now our selected coin data is always going to have the most recent clicked item. So moving into the chart, we'll want to pass in certain values in here that can later be used to render all of this data out. Before that, I just want to apologize about the sound. I did not have the right input plugged in. I'm hoping that it's better now and it's a bit more clear without as much background noise. So let's get back into it. So we'll have chart here, and we could pass in the current price being selected coin data dot current underscore price. And we're doing something similar to what we had over here. So now if we copy that a couple times, the next one is going to be the logo URL. And this is actually going to be image because this needs to correspond to our sample data. And that's what we did here as well. So we've got logo URL, we'll have a name in here. So name, here we could have price change percentage 7 days and copy that down. And then the last item will be the sparkline. And that we could also say selected coin data, and we'll say sparkline in 7D dot price. So if you're curious as to how this is all happening or where all this stuff is kind of coming from, we could go check out our sample data. So under assets, data, sample data, this is where it's all coming from. So we have sparkline in 7 days dot price will give us this over here. Current price will give us this, image will give us the actual image. So that's where it's all coming from. And then in the next video, we'll be adding all of that through the API instead of kind of hard coding it through a sample data file. So we see here that we're getting an error now, and that's just because we're rendering this chart and trying to pass in all these items, even though selected coin data doesn't actually exist yet. It's still set to null. So what we could do, really simple, add this, some brackets around it, some curly braces, and we could say selected coin data. If it exists, then show this chart. Otherwise, just show null. And we could save that, and there we go. Now in the actual chart component itself, and I'll just put it to the right here so we could see them side by side, we can go ahead and accept those props. So current price, let me just copy over the other ones. And we can go and console log any of them just to make sure that they're actually showing up. So console log current price. If we open up our console, clear all of that out, click Bitcoin, and there we go. Now, if we were to click Ethereum, we could see that the price is changing accordingly every time we click it. So let's get started by building out this titles section up here. So to do that, let's delete everything that's in this view, delete the console log, and let's create a style sheet. Style sheet.create. Just like that. Now this one is going to have a style of styles.chart wrapper. And now let's also create a wrapper for the titles. It's going to be style titles wrapper. And we could even add a comment in here, titles. So now for the first one, we could wrap all of this in a view. So it's going to be view, view. It's going to have the style of styles.upper titles, since it's going to take into account all of these over here. So we'll have upper titles, and in this upper titles, we need another view, which is going to hold the styles dot. It's going to hold the image here and title. So we could call this maybe upper left title. In here, we'll have an image, which is going to be source is equal to URI. And let's just make sure that this is actually imported from React Native, otherwise we'll get an error. So URI, and we could say logo URL. We'll also give this a style, styles.image. Perfect. And then right after that, we'll have a text component. This one is going to hold the name, as we could see here, the name of the coin. And then also we'll have a space, 2 brackets, and we'll have the symbol. So symbol. And as I type that, I realized that it's not included up here. So let's put it into the props and make sure that we pass it in app.js. So chart, we'll say under name symbol is equal to, and let's just copy all of that, symbol. Perfect. So we can give this one a style as well. This is going to be styles, and it will be a subtitle. And that's perfect for this upper left title over here. And then now we'll just have a simple text for the one on the right. And this one is just going to say 7 days. And it'll also have the same style of styles.subtitle. Now we can just clean up the spacing here, and we're going to have something very similar for the lower section. So styles.lower titles, and that's going to be this area over here. So all it's going to be 2 text items. So 1, 2. First one is going to have a $, and then the current price. And the second one is going to have the change percentage, so price change percentage with a %sign at the end. Now, similar to what we did in ListItem, we can make sure that the current price is formatted like the US dollar is supposed to be formatted. So we could just copy over that code. And we could do a similar thing for the percentage where we wanted to have 2 decimal points. So we could go copy over that code. So let's copy all these styles over. And actually real quick before that, let's just paste in the styles over here. So it's going to be a bold title. And this one's going to be styles.title, just the regular title. So I'm holding down the Option key and then copying all these, or double clicking all these style names. Now I'll click Command C and Command V to paste them in. And now I'm holding down Option once again, so I could multi-click and just formatting them. So for the chart wrapper, we'll give it a margin of 16 all the way around. Maybe let's open this up just so we could see what we're working with. For the titles wrapper, we'll leave it as is for now. So I'll just leave it empty for now. For the upper titles, let's set the flex direction to row and save that. And there you go. You already see it moving over to the side. And let's say justify content is going to be space between. Make sure to add the brackets like that. Save. And now we could see that it goes to the opposite extremities. And let's just make sure that it's aligned. So align items center. Cool. We could actually copy the same thing for the lower titles. So just gonna copy, paste that in, and there we go. Now we could get started with the upper left title. And actually before that, let's just set up the image. So we'll say width is going to be, let's go check our design. And I've mentioned this before, but if you're curious about where to find this design, you could check the link in the description below. So we'll set it to 24 and then a height of 24 as well. There we have it. So upper left titles, we'll say flex direction is row. Align items will be center. And let's add a bit of margin on the right of the image. There we go, just like that. Now for the subtitles, let's change the font size. So the font size is going to be, let's check our design, 14. And the color, sorry about that, color is going to be this gray. So let's just copy that, paste it in, save, and there we go. Now continuing on, so for the bold title, I'm just going to copy this font size and color, so I don't need to type it out again. We'll keep it a font size of 18, I believe. Let's check out the design. So 24. Color is going to be default, which is black, and we'll give it a font weight of bold. There we go. And then lastly, this item over here, which is going to be 18. So font size is going to be 18. And that's it. Perfect. Now, similar to what we had done in ListItem to get this color, depending on if it's positive or negative, we could do the same thing. So let's jump to ListItem. And in here, let's copy the line for price change color, paste it in. And in here, we could have styles title, put that into an array, and also pass in price change color as the color for it. And we just need to wrap that into an object. And there we go. So now if we click another one, we'll see a change. Amazing. Last thing we could update is the symbol. Let's do 2 uppercase, just like that, and there we go. The last part that we'll be working on for the UI will be this chart over here. So to get this chart up and running, we'll be using this other package called React Native Animated Charts. And if we scroll down, we could see a little preview and then installation. So install React Native Reanimated. We've already done that for the bottom sheet. And now we just need to copy this and paste it in. Once that's done, we can continue on in the documentation and look at their example app. So in here, let's copy this line, which is gonna give us all the imports that we need. And all we actually need is the chart path, chart.chartPath, and chart path provider, like that. There we go. And then we'll wrap our entire component in the chart path provider. Next, we can pass in these values over here. So the data and then the smoothing strategy, and that's going to be right over here. So for the data points, so we'll say points, and in here we'll call upon sparkline, since those are the points that we want to pass in. Cool. So now moving down, we could see that we could just copy this over here and see what it renders. Now size, we don't have size yet, so let's just copy this here. And we'll have to import dimensions from React Native. And if we save that, we can see a chart. So yellow, let's change this to black. There we go. Now we could see that when we click, there's definitely an issue there where it's not properly aligned. So to fix that, let's just wrap this entirely in a view. And this view will give it a style of styles.chartLineWrapper. And pasting that down here, let's give it a margin top of 40. And that's also going to just push everything down. So there we go. Now, one last styling touch that we could do is change the chart wrapper margin to margin vertical. And on saving that, you'll see that it aligns everything properly for the chart, but misaligns this area over here, which is where we jump into the titles wrapper and set the margin horizontal to 16, just like that. And now we're back to normal. Cool. So now what we'll want to implement is when we click here, we want this dot to be black. And we also want this number to update accordingly as we scrub over the chart. So let's start with the easy one, which is making this dot black. So just change blue to black, like that, and now it'll be black. And then to get this to update, basically what we'll do is instead of just passing in the current price over here into a text item, we'll use the ChartYLabel from the animated charts package to do so. So if we go check out one of their examples, so you go to the top here, source, example, source, and go to generic example index.js, you'll see that they import this ChartYLabel from their package, and they use it down here. And what it does is it basically renders the Y value wherever the dot currently is. So let's copy this over. So ChartYLabel. So let's bring it over here and let's paste it right above the text right above the text that we have for the current price. Now we'll get an error because it can't find the variable ChartYLabel. So let's just import that. And we'll get another error as well that we don't know what this format USD function is. So in here, they've included an example for it. So we just need to go find that function, and I think it's going to be up here. There we go. So we could copy that over. And you might notice that here it says worklet, and you might be asking yourself what that means. Basically, it means that it's going to be running on the UI thread instead of the JavaScript thread. And that's something that's specific to this package. And if you'd like to learn more, I think they've written some documentation about it in their library. So let's save that. So once we've done that, we could see this little item appearing here. Let's actually delete these styles and replace them with styles dot bold title. Save that, and let's comment out the other bold title for now. So going back up here, right now we're not seeing anything because it's saying value is equal to empty, so let me return nothing. But if we start clicking on the chart, we'll see this show up where it's going to return the current value in the USD currency, which we could see like that. So instead of returning nothing here, let's make it return a value. So we'll add some backticks and we'll pass in the current price like that. And there we go. Now, the reason we're using the backticks here is just because it expects a string and will crash otherwise. So now we could see that it's not properly formatted. So when it's just the simple current price, it's not properly formatted to have the $ and the comma. And when it's like this, it's also not properly formatted. So let's fix up the current price first, and we could actually go down to line 40 where we had our commented out previous title and copy all of that. Now, what that does is it converts it so that it looks like USD, or the way USD is supposed to look. And we could just add a $ in front of it, and there we have it. For this one over here, it gets a little bit trickier because it's running on the UI thread. I'm honestly not exactly 100% sure what is going on behind the scenes, but what I've found to work in order to get it to have only 2 decimal points is to do something along the lines of the following. So we could have a new value called formatted value. And in here, what we'll do is we'll create 2 backticks and open up our $ and curly braces so that we could pass in some JavaScript. And we'll say parse float value. Then we'll say toFixed of 2. And then we could just add a $ at the beginning, copy this and return it like that. So if we save that and run it, and let's just reload, we could see that it does go to the 2 decimal points, but we don't get that comma that we were looking for. And to do that, we could use regex by saying .replace. And in here, I'm just going to paste in the regex that we'll be using. And I'm also going to comment this down below and pin it just so that you could copy and paste it rather than having to write it out yourself. Or you could also go check out the repo on GitHub with the finalized version that I've linked down below. So let's save that. And now let's just restart our app by tapping R into your terminal. And if we go click one, we could see that we get what we were looking for. As some finishing touches, we could jump back to app.js and just change this 50% to something like 40%, just to bring it a little bit lower so it's easier to use. Maybe change that to 45, and I think that's perfect. Cool. So to recap this video, we built out this bottom sheet where we learned how to use the React native animated charts library to build out this really nice and interactive chart. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more. And then in the next video, we'll be building out the API integration so we could populate this list with real live data. So stay tuned for that.